The night was dry and cold when the gunfire stopped echoing through the dusty Texas town. Inside the small jail, a young woman lay on the dirt floor, blood pooling beneath her torn dress. In her trembling arms, a newborn whimpered weakly. The sheriff, cold-eyed and ruthless, turned his back and muttered, "She got what she deserved." The heavy door slammed shut, leaving only silence and the creak of chains. Outside, thunder rolled somewhere beyond the mesas, and the stars above were as pitiless as the law itself. Hours passed before a shadow moved near the jail window. A tall man with a wide-brimmed hat peered in, his face weathered by years on the trail. He wasn't law, but he was justice in his own way. His name was Colt McCrae, a bounty hunter who had seen too much of men like that sheriff. When he spotted the faint glimmer of life inside, he kicked down the door. The baby's cry pierced the night as he wrapped his coat around the trembling woman. She was half-conscious, her lips pale, whispering something that sounded like a name. Colt lifted her gently, feeling the weight of her suffering. "Hold on," he murmured, glancing at the child. "You're safe now." He carried them out into the cool desert night, the sheriff's drunken laughter echoing from the saloon across the street. Colt spat in the dust. "Not for long," he said under his breath. He didn't know her story yet, but he knew evil when he saw it. By sunrise, they reached his small camp in the hills overlooking the valley. Colt cleaned her wound with whiskey, cursing under his breath as she flinched. The baby cried softly beside the fire. When the woman finally stirred awake, her eyes fluttered open, green and filled with fear. You should have left me," she whispered. Colt shook his head. "Ain't in my nature." He handed her water, his voice low and steady. "What's your name, ma'am?" She hesitated. "Clara?" The name trembled like a secret. As days passed, Clara slowly regained strength. She spoke little, mostly about her child, whom she named Hope. Colt noticed the scars on her wrists, signs of chains, not just hardship. One night by the fire, she finally told her story. Her husband had been a ranch hand wrongly accused of theft. When he tried to prove his innocence, the sheriff shot him. Clara had been arrested for defending him, and the sheriff had taken his cruelty out on her. Colt's jaw tightened, eyes burning with fury. He decided then that justice would come. When Clara slept, he rode back into town under moonlight, his rifle strapped across his back. The saloon was noisy, filled with smoke and lies. The sheriff sat at a poker table, smug and laughing. Colt walked in slow, his spurs clicking like thunder in the silence that followed. "Evening, Sheriff," he said calmly. "You left something behind, a woman and her child." The sheriff sneered. "That whore? She's lucky I didn't hang her." Colt's hand hovered near his holster. Before the sheriff could blink, Colt drew and fired. The gunshot echoed through the saloon, and the sheriff slumped over, his whiskey glass shattering to the floor. Men scattered like startled cattle. Colt holstered his gun, eyes cold. "That's for her husband," he muttered. Then he turned and walked into the night, the Silver Star badge glinting briefly before he tossed it into the dirt. Outside, rain began to fall, soft and cleansing over the blood-stained town. When Colt returned to camp, Clara looked up at him from beside the fire. He said nothing at first, just sat down and stared into the flames. "It's done," he finally said. She understood without asking how. Her eyes filled with silent tears, not of grief but release. Colt held the baby for the first time, awkward yet careful. Hope cooed softly, tiny fingers gripping his glove. "She likes you," Clara whispered with a faint smile. For the first time in years, Colt felt warmth spread through his chest. Weeks turned into months. Clara's strength returned and she began to smile again. She helped Colt mend his gear, cook, and tend to his horse. They built a quiet rhythm in their lonely world, a strange family forged in hardship. But trouble found them again when bounty riders came looking for Colt, men he'd once double-crossed. One night, gunfire ripped through the canyon. Colt shouted for Clara to hide as bullets struck the rocks. He returned fire, protecting them with everything he had. At dawn, smoke hung in the air. The attackers lay still in the dust and Colt bled from a shoulder wound. Clara ran to him, pressing her hands to the wound, tears falling freely. "Don't leave us," she whispered. He smiled weakly. "Ain't planning to, darlin'." For days she nursed him back to health, refusing to let him fade. When he finally woke, he found Hope sleeping on his chest, tiny and peaceful. Clara stood by the fire, her hair catching the morning light. "You saved me twice," she said softly. Colt looked at her for a long moment. "You saved me first. There was no ceremony, no words of confession, just understanding. Life in the West didn't allow many second chances, but somehow they had found one. Together they buried the past in that canyon and rode toward a new horizon. The wind carried the cries of hawks above, and hope giggled in Clara's arms as the horse galloped through fields of gold. For the first time, the bounty hunter smiled. He finally had something worth living for.